today. So just as a heads up, both the teams that are presenting today are going to be presenting via Teams. So, if you're in person, I'll probably have the thing muted so we don't have any feedback for most of the talking. But if you want to say something, just speak up and I'll unmute it. I've got the laptop facing the audience, so hopefully there won't be any issues hearing anyone in person. But apart from that, we'll go ahead and get started with Chapter 2's presentation. It should be William Parks and Charlie Zimmerman.
Perfect. So, all right, so you guys can hear us all right? Just double checking one more time. Let's see. Okay, I guess so. Awesome. All right, do you have the slides pulled up? You want to share those?
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Is there any way that we can share these slides on here? Let's see. You click share screen.
I did share screen, but it's not.
Won't let you. Click open system preferences. Sorry, we're having to work through this really fast.
It's not letting me. All right.
That should get it. There we go. That might be it. Still isn't showing up on the screen. Alrighty, let's see. Is it sharing my screen? Can you guys can see the screen? I don't know which one you can see. Okay, we aren't sure which computer has it, so we're going to do both computers at the same time when we change slides. Here, I'll do this. I think that was yours. Awesome. Alrighty, so we had Chapter 2, which covered information. So I guess our first slide really is, what is Apple Incorporated? Well, Apple is a computer hardware and software company that was founded in Cupertino, California on April 1st, 1976. And essentially, they're one of the world's most famous brands that has a loyal and competitive consumer base. You talk to people that have Androids or iPhones, people are pretty tough on which one they like the most. But they have a wide range of products and services, which include laptops, desktops, smartphones, tablets, watches, TV devices, so on and so forth. And Apple was essentially created by Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, and Ronald Wayne. There's all a few pictures of them. Let's go to the next slide. So the CEO that they currently have right now is Tim Cook, and Apple can be defined as one of the world's largest to scale information technology companies, which recently evaluated. Uh-oh. Did it switch off? Oh no. This is sad. Let's see. Why is it not? Come on. Sorry guys, technical difficulties. Why is it not showing up?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
When you made the slideshow bigger, it closed the screen down. So try minimizing it again back to where you had it originally.
All right, can you see it now?
It might take a second.
All right, give it 1 second.
So we can see your screen now.
There it is.
Yep. So maybe just do it like that for the moment, and then we'll try and figure out in the future how to do it from there.
Alrighty, perfect. Thank you. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Should we go back? That way we can.
Should we go? I think.
All right, so those are the three: Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, and Ronald Wayne, who are the three founders of Apple. And then this is the current CEO,
Tim Cook.
Tim Cook.
And so Apple's mission statement essentially states, bring the best user experience to its customers through its innovative hardware, software, and services, which I think we can all agree on that, I mean, they do. I mean, some people who like them and don't, even if you don't like Apple, you can understand that everything that they have and all their products, they just work. That's why they're such an intuitive and innovative company. So we have a few pictures of the Apple logo that is evolved over the course of time from 1976, whenever they were first born. Their first service line was personal computers, and they took off in 1976, which then evolved into 1977, where they became incorporated. So that was kind of their first corporate Apple logo, which was their
Macintosh.
Yeah, the Macintosh. So it evolved all the way up to 2017, which I mean, is still the same logo today.
It's more minimalistic now.
Yeah, it's a little more minimalistic. So I guess the next primary information systems Apple really utilizes are they have management information systems, expert systems, transaction processing systems, office automation systems, knowledge worker systems, decision support systems, and expert support and information systems. So let's break down these a little bit. What does each of these do? So a management information system is essentially, it includes hardware and software, and Apple tends to keep this kind of as a secret. It's their competitive advantage, and they do provide some varieties of services to its customers, which one of them is iCloud. But a lot of these inner workings are really kept on the behind the scenes because, you know, having a $2 trillion company, you don't want anybody else to try and get a foot up on you.
Next, we have expert systems, which there's only currently one offered by Apple, which is Siri, which attempts to replicate the decision-making capabilities of a human expert. Although there are flaws with the system, if you were to take a look back at where it started to now, the growth has been exponential, and it tries to just replace having to call someone for help or just speed up systems.
And then we have the transaction processing system, which everybody loves, that credit card payment processing. Apple's incorporated TPS into most of the products, such as iTunes, App Store, Apple Music, which allows for business to be done without having the use of a separate application or a separate, I guess, longer way of making a purchase. Everything's easy, intuitive, and can be done on their website, and is very quick and efficient. This is also used inside some of their internal processes whenever they go through and they purchase items internally, like computers for new workers. It still passes through this same transaction processing system.
Next, we have office automation system, which is the usage of multiple computers in performing business activities. By using the iCloud software, we can digitally create, store, collect, and relay information needed for accomplishing basic tasks, which just allows for an easier, better ease of access to share information between coworkers or just individuals.
And then next up, we have the knowledge worker systems. I don't know what happened to my font there. I decided to go short, but the knowledge worker systems are essentially computer applications that are used for people who deal with input and output, or who input information and produce output with it. It's essentially it's a computer application that aids in the day-to-day tasks of people who just deal with data. It also captures and organizes work and activity information for whatever those people are doing on a daily basis.
And then decision support systems is a piece of software that was created in order to help aid in determinations, judgments, and courses of actions within an organization or business. These decisions are typically when there is a lot at stake and many variables at hand.
And then lastly, we have expert support systems. These systems don't necessarily aim to replace human support. meaning like if you call Apple for technical support for whatever device you have, their aim is not to necessarily replace them, but to rather support with that job. So whenever you call and you have a robot answer and say, hey, what are you looking for? What's wrong with your computer? What's wrong with your phone? Tell us what's up. And it'll direct you to the right person who knows a lot more, a specialist in that area of the device. So I guess next up we have financials.
So as you can see, the above chart shows the net income from December 31st, 2005 to August 1st, 2020. As it shows above, although the most recent income was up, their quarterly net income was down almost 50% of the previous quarter. The quarterly growth was up to 12.04% from negative 2.7%, which was an overall increase of 14.74% in 2 quarters, which could be attributed to a new device on the horizon or easier access of products to the public. There's a nodal growth around every 1 to 3 years, which is most likely due to the fact that a new product was purchased by those who had the idea of purchasing the product from the get-go, and the advertisement stayed around the same, which caused a downfall in overall income going back.
So I think our first question up is, one thing that Apple does really well is they're good at security. You don't really hear a whole lot about Apple having information breaches or any kind of security flaw. So do you think it's worth having a secure machine? Do you think it's worth the premium price that you have to pay to get something that's so secure? Oh, we can barely. All we heard is I don't think. We can barely hear.
I don't think paying a premium price is
This is not gonna work. Sorry, we can't really hear.
Yeah, so basically, what was said is that, it's possible that having a premium price doesn't have a real relationship with, a secure machine. So, it's kind of some cultural ambiguity there, I think is what he's trying to get at. So it's an interesting perspective, I think.
Right. Okay. I mean, that is true. All right, next one.
Yeah. Can we answer on this?
Yeah.
That is a valid statement, but I kind of would say that the security kind of goes along with the price. I know it's not the only factor of why they're expensive, but Apple is known for much less hacks and breaches and say Microsoft and
right. And going forward, and sorry.
No, go ahead.
Thinking about it too, you have Windows, and Windows as a platform is developed for a ton of different computers. You have HP, you have Dell, you have Lenovo, you have a bunch of different computers, right? That's a lot of different hardware that that Windows essentially has to cover and try and secure. I think the reason why the premium price of one of these machines is as high as it is for security, especially, is because all of Apple's products are designed for their products. Their software is designed around their hardware. They're not having to, create something that is a universal package. Same thing with Android too. Android phones. It's typically a universal software that goes on these phones, and therefore you're going to see a lot more security vulnerabilities within these machines. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, it's almost as if they're more exclusive.
Right. So okay, yeah, we can move on to the next one.
The next question is, in order to spike economic growth of your company, would you release an older hardware with a new and improved software? Which is something which Apple has done with their iPhone SE and other laptops.
Hey, I had an iPhone SE and that thing worked like really well.
Optimized it pretty well, didn't they?
So I would say if you can do it as well as Apple did, then I would definitely.
That's true. Cool. Anybody else have anything? Earth and new and improved. Well, I guess we're on to the next one then.
Yeah, I'd like to say something here. So what the question is saying is that, you can actually grow your company by continuing to support older hardware. Is that right?
Yes.
So the way I kind of look at this question is, it's not so much the hardware sale, because if it's a used piece of hardware, Apple's not gaining any additional revenue from that sale. However, it does bring people into an ecosystem. And, when you talk about the Apple ecosystem, they have the App Store, which on both Mac and iOS platforms, they take about 30% of every sale just right off the top. So I think that's a brilliant approach, is to continue to support older devices and allow people who maybe don't have the same economic purchasing power that other people would to still contribute and to still give your company revenue. Otherwise, you're to lose that revenue. So anyone want to
And I think going off of that, sorry about that. And going off of that, I'm actually, if I remember, Apple even released that even with their iPhone SE 2 or whatever, they're really not gaining much of a net income from the the pieces of hardware. And like you were saying, it's more to bring them in, people to hook them into their ecosystem so that they, the next phone or whatever device they purchase is going to stay within the Apple family.
All right. Let's run to the next one. All right, and then with the growth of Apple and more socioeconomic healthy markets, would creating family groups for easier tracking be a necessity for your product?
Maybe as a 20-year-old, no. Maybe as a parent, yes. Let's see. I've had a lot of people, they'll complain about their parents or they'll have tracking on their phones and stuff. But
Right.
I guess from a parent perspective, it would be very useful and safer.
Right. So I think in order for that to really take off, I know especially parents of I can't say I know because I'm not a father, but being like, a parent of a young kid, I probably would not drop, $1,300 on my phone just to gain that tracking capability. But if it's better than anything else, like Life 360 or all the other alternatives, then I could see that potentially being a valid use case of capital. If it's going to keep my kids safer, then I would spend the money. But like you were saying, if you're not in the kind of mindset where you really need the tracking, what's the point of it?
Hey, can I interject here? Can you guys
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Sorry. So one of the biggest problems I have with tracking people, even if the original intent is to keep children safer, that data has to be stored somewhere.
Right.
And so I disagree with the idea of allowing someone to track if it is me or my future children in any regard, just because even if they say it's encrypted beyond what modern standards would regard as encryption, I don't think it's still necessary. Do you guys understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Totally.
I think it's not a good idea to give someone more information about myself when I'm already paying for their device, because then they can target me better for more devices in the future, even if they're saying they're not looking at that data. How many times have that company said we're not using your data, and then it comes out 4 years later that they sold data to China? I mean,
right.
I'm over generalizing, but at the same time, I wouldn't trust Apple more specifically with tracking data more than I can touch them with a 10-foot pole. But anyway.
Right. No, that's completely valid. Actually, I was reading a news article a couple of days ago about Apple and their release of is it iOS 14? Is that what it is?
Mhm.
Okay, iOS 14, and how they're cracking down on the privacy of their devices, and how it's going to be hitting Facebook. I think it's Facebook Business, where you do all the Facebook ads from, and essentially because they're cracking down on the privacy and the security of all that information, it's actually going to supposedly it's projected to cut Facebook's business advertising platform, that revenue, in about half, which is a huge slap on the face. But that's a very good point, and that's a good, like, something is true. I mean, why would you give somebody more information than they really need to have, especially if you're paying such a premium price for a device?
Yeah, we have about one more time for about one more person to speak.
Anybody have anything else? We can just think.
So let me read off some of the stuff in chat, 'cause we've got some stuff in here. So Jarek is saying that a family of 3 or more would make it easier to find a phone if it was lost by a kid. I mean, kids certainly do lose stuff. But it'd be certainly problematic potentially from the perspective of tracking. So that's certainly something to consider. Is how do we enable that feature? How do we make sure it's not enabled if we don't want it enabled? How do we make sure it can't be disabled on a device that it should be enabled on? That sort of thing I think is important to consider.
Right.
And then looks like we have is it Raina? I'm not sure how to say that exactly. But she says, as a mom, I would like tracking as he gets older, but I understand not wanting data used to be able to track him for other reasons. So just making sure that the privacy policies are in a good place. They're very rational, that they're fair. I assume that also includes things like making sure that just beyond how they would use it intentionally, making sure that it's protected in a way that wouldn't be used unintentionally, I think is kind of what people are getting at there. So great job today. I appreciate you guys doing it. I know it's kind of a different way to present. I'm not going to say better or worse, but certainly it's interesting. So I think next up we have Chapter 7 should be Tommy, Josh, and Quentin. So if one of you guys will just share your screen with the PowerPoint, and we'll go from there.
I'm ready when you are, Tommy.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you. Tommy, you're muted.
Okay, Kosh, sorry. You can hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, awesome. All right. Good afternoon, class. We're doing our presentation on Chapter 7 of the textbook, which is data modeling. My name's Tommy Smith.
I'm Josh Tucker.
And I'm Quentin Gray.
And today we're going to go more in depth on what data modeling is and how it can benefit various organizations. So, what is data modeling? Data modeling is simply just a method for determining what data and relationships should be stored in the database. And data modeling, it is broken down into 3 main types. And the conceptual data model simply just defines what the system contains. Its main purpose is to organize, scope, and define business concepts and rules. And as you can see from this chart here, it's very easy on the eyes, very easy to understand. There's no attributes, key attributes, and any of that jazz. It's just simply the entities. So very easy to understand.
All right, and with the logical data model, so this is getting a little bit more detailed than the conceptual model. Now, along with your entities such as time, product, and store, you're going to have attributes for those entities. And these are broken down into two different groups of your key attributes and non-key attributes. Usually, your key attribute is going to be some sort of identifier, such as the store ID or the product ID. And whenever you're looking at a logical data model, you want to make sure you use friendly attribute names that a user could understand. And also these this type of data model is database agnostic, which means that you could plug this in somewhere else and use it as a generic or like a multi-purpose model. And that brings us to the last one, which is physical data model. And so this is where things get really complex and a lot harder to understand for the user. In the physical data model, the entities are no longer referred to as entities. They're going to be referred to as tables, and attributes are going to be referred to as columns. So this isn't user-friendly at all, and the column names have to be database-compatible names, and you have to use database-specific data types.
Okay, and for our case on data models, we chose Apple, specifically Apple's iPhone 11. And according to Omida Smartphone Model Tracker, the iPhone 11 was the best-selling smartphone of Q1 2020, with an estimated 19.5 units sold. And this is easily tracked by Apple using the data models that they have developed in-house. And here's a chart of the top 10 models in global smartphone shipments. And as you can see, the Apple iPhone 11 outsold the second highest selling smartphone of the year by over 3 times as much. Okay, and right here we made a logical data model. It shows it showed for the Apple Store in Ridgely, Mississippi on August 27th, 2020. As you can see, it has entities and attributes, but they are very easily understandable. So on August 27th, 2020, the iPhone 11 was priced at $849, and it sold on that day. It sold 56 units, and that came out to a profit of $47,544.
All right, now we're open for some questions. I have a question, and it's financially, how do organizations benefit from employing a data modeling system? Any thoughts on that? Okay, well, some benefits would include if you were to develop a data modeling system, it would reduce your costs. You can build applications at lower costs by the usage of data models. And also, the main goal of designing a data model is to make certain that data objects offered by the functional team are represented accurately. And it also helps businesses to like communicate within and across organizations better, so they're able to get and relay information to each other a lot quicker. So it just makes things run more efficiently, and especially in the business world, efficiency equals more dollars. So, yeah. And would there be any potential cons about employing a data modeling system within a business? Any cons you could think of? Well, one con would be that even the smallest change made into the structure would require modification of the entire application. So,
I think there could be some potential drawbacks when we're talking about data modeling. If we're going to then go forward and implement it, certainly that's going to take a lot of organizational resources. So if you're only going to have, say, one record per day, it probably doesn't make logical sense for you to then say, okay, we're going to invest maybe 100 hours of our labor, and then beyond that, to maintain it, it's going to cost more time than the benefit we received from it. So I think that it really depends upon the scale. If you're on a very large scale, this is going to make quite a bit of difference. If you're on a very small scale, it probably won't make a lot of difference, and it probably would be costly to do.
Right. Okay.
All right.
Anything else? Okay, go on to the second question
Okay.
now.
Our second question is, do different organizations use the same data models, or do they use different data models? And for this, we kind of said that it really depends on your business model and what kind of product you're using or selling, or if it's a service. For instance, Walmart may have a different data model than a car dealership.
Yeah, I'll jump in here again. So basically, when we think back to how we implement a system, there's three main approaches we could take. We could do vanilla, we could do best of breed, or we could do a custom implementation. I think that for some things, if we're getting a system that's already kind of in place, it's already made, and basically all we have to do is just input what our company is into it, I think in that case we could use a vanilla approach to a data model. If we're, let's say we're a hospital, most hospitals, they have the same basic functions. They admit patients into the emergency room. They have some sort of operating rooms, that sort of thing. That's going to be relatively consistent. So it's possible you could use a vanilla model for stuff like patient information, those sorts of things. But when you get more into the kind of specifics, you're going to have to move towards a more custom approach. So if you're not just doing, any sort of basic model for this is our customer database, this is what sales data we have, that's when you really have to move into a custom approach. So I think that's kind of, you have some different options there, but it all depends upon what you're looking to do.
Right. I agree with that. Quentin?
Okay. And for my question, I have, what type of data model does a successful company use? Okay, and what we decided on for our answer was that there is no right data model for a company to use, because data models vary, kind of like what Josh said, they vary depending on the type of company it is and what they're trying to accomplish, because you wouldn't expect a big company like Apple to have the same data model as a mom and pop shop, because they have a lot more data to store and a lot more variables to keep in mind.
Yes, I'm going to read off Charlie's response. He said, any of them, it depends on what the goals of the company are. So yeah, certainly, when we consider applying a data model, it's something we apply because it's logical. It will allow us to store the information we need, and hopefully it eliminates things like redundancy, data isolation, and other sorts of problems like that. So I think that's a good answer as well. William says any of them for the specific cases. It certainly does depend upon what you're trying to do. If you have a data model where you're trying to, accurately model like a library system, that's going to be very different from a data model which you're trying to look at student registration. So, certainly, as long as the data model is representative of the problem you're trying to solve and the information you're trying to gather, it'll be fine, I think. So does anyone else want to add to any of those or give their thoughts?
All right, is that it?
Looks like it.
Yeah, so let me jump in here if that's okay.
Okay.
So I think that we've had a great discussion today about data models. We've kind of talked about how they're used, some of the basic things for, in this case we used Apple, how they may actually use that for their kind of modeling their sales. But this is certainly a discussion that could go on indefinitely. When we consider the effectiveness of a data model. Earlier there was a question about, from a financial perspective, why should you do it? Why should you not do it? Well, I mean, from a purely financial perspective, something as simple as keeping track of accounts receivable, or accounts payable. You can easily determine what you haven't paid. You can easily determine what you've paid that you should not have paid. For example, let's say someone orders some roses for Valentine's Day on a company credit card. That's pretty obviously not going to be company business. So you run a basic query on that, and you figure out this is something that's a problem. It's not possible with paper records. That's something that you can only do if it's electronic. You can easily search through it. Sure, you can manually search through it, but who's going to take the time to do that for, maybe potentially tens of thousands, maybe even millions of records? So I think that's what this really kind of gives us, is that insight into what is actually happening with our organization. Anyone else want to jump in? Well, yeah, that's really about it today. Thanks for attending. Certainly do appreciate that. For the teams that presented, I will make sure to send you all, the feedback via email. Put the grades in at some point, hopefully by the end of the day tomorrow. So yeah, if you have any questions, stick around. I'm happy to answer. If not, I hope you all have a great day.